How do we get deals done with less money? Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, and man, hey, Merry Christmas. It's going to be, it's Christmas soon. I got to get some Christmas shopping done. So after this, I got to go around to the store and get some shopping done. Hopefully, if you celebrate Christmas, you've got your shopping done and don't wait till the last minute like me. But, maybe it's good. Probably not, but maybe it's good. All right. So today I want to talk about creative financing, seller financing, figuring out different ways to make deals work. And this is especially important when you're first beginning, but I think it's valuable no matter where you're at in your journey. I think creative financing, getting deals done creatively, and it might not even be financing, just creative deal work. Can be so valuable to being able to expand your real estate portfolio. But when you're first beginning, look, you probably don't have a ton of money. And so how do we get deals done with less money? As you're going to look, if you want to buy more deals, you eventually could everybody just runs out of money eventually. And so how do you continue to get more deals done? And I want to talk about what I've done and what I've seen other people do with getting offers across to sellers and making it attractive to them to actually be creative. And so first off, I think where it comes from, being successful with getting creative deals done, you just have to make the offers. You just have to present what you're trying to do, and you have to present it in a clear, easy to understand way. And so the biggest thing is just when you make that offer, if you don't explain what that looks like, it's going to be hard for them to say yes. If you just say we're going to do seller financing and it's going to be a 90 or 95% loan to value, and we're going to give you let's call it a 5%. We're going to give you a 5% down payment at 5% interest rate for the next 5 years. What's that mean? I don't know. That's probably not that challenging for most people to understand, but at the same time, let's just make it even easier. What does that mean? So how do you make that easier? You give them a schedule that shows exactly what they're going to get every single month, or you put that in there. You will be receiving X dollars per month. So much will go to principal reduction, so much will go to interest, or maybe it's an interest only payment. So it all goes to interest. It's all profit in their pocket. Right. And then at the end of those 5 years, you're going to get paid back in full, or maybe it's 10 years or whatever it might be. And so that's really important. So what are you actually receiving as a seller? Then the next part is, why is this beneficial to you as a seller? So for instance, if you're going to buy from a person that's owned it for many, many, many years, they're going to have to pay. They get a big tax burden to pay. Maybe they're much, much older, and you're like, there's probably good chance, and within the next 5 years, they are going to die, or 10 years or whatever. Maybe they're 90 years old. Okay, well, calculations say that you're probably going to die within the next 10 years. So let's just set this 10-year term up, and it expires, within 6 months after your death, if you do die within that period of time. And then why is that beneficial? Well, so for right now, we've got this installment sale. So you're getting, 90-year-old guy, you're getting this check in the mail, or I'll go probably direct to your account, but you're getting this money that goes directly to you, and it's we call it $2,000 every single month, and you're getting that. And you do have to pay taxes on it, but it's an installment sale, so the taxes are much, much, much less than this big, huge lump sum. Well, then when you die, now it triggers an actual sale, And there can be some stipulations in there. So if you get this deal under contract and you buy it and they die within 2 months, all of a sudden you're not going, oh crap, now what do I do? But at the same time, you can set up so where it's good for you and it's good for him and his family. And so you can say, well, when you die, we will execute a full purchase within 6 months or within 12 months or whatever it might be. And then his heirs actually get a step up in basis, and they don't have to pay those big taxes, right? They don't have to pay this big, huge lump sum because the sale happens after that person dies and you get passed on. And so we avoid that situation. So win-win, right? They get this monthly payment every single month. They don't have to deal with the property. They're old. They want to enjoy their life. And they just don't want to think about this property anymore that they've owned forever. And it doesn't have to be 90-year-old. It could be a 70-year-old, it could be 80-year-old, it could be a 20-year-old. Well, probably not a 20-year-old. But in this scenario, we're solving a couple of problems, right? We're taking away the property from them so they don't have that pain. We're giving them a monthly payment. So now they have income. We're lessening their tax burden, and we're allowing it to all the profits to flow to their heirs upon their passing. So we solve some big problems there. So you have to figure out how to set this up when we actually make the offer to show the seller truly what it looks like. So find that there's in my opinion like 4 keys, right? So 4 keys of making a creative offer. First of all, find out what the seller's motivation is. Second of all, you have to have a very clear presentation. You have to show your track record, show clear presentation. Number 3 is show your numbers. And that really is number 2, goes with number 2. Show your numbers. Show what this looks like to that seller and why this is beneficial to them. And then number 4, make the offer. And I think you should make multiple offers. You should show them what buying this building would look like if you just bought it straight cash. Now, I'm financing. I say cash. You're getting bank financing, but it's cash into their pocket. And then maybe make multiple different seller financing or creative financing offers. But again, they have to be clear. They have to be clear because a confused mind is a no immediately. So you have to make sure it's clear. I'll give you a perfect example. So I purchased a building back in I believe it was 2015, 2016 timeline. Okay. So this was a 22 unit building. I bought it contract for deed. Okay. I bought it from the seller, contract for deed. And that deal was fantastic because this guy was retiring, wanted to retire. And he wanted to, wanted to take care of his grandkids. Also had a place in Florida. They wanted to spend time there. They didn't want to spend a bunch of time managing this property. And this property, quite frankly, was more or less a distressed property. So he didn't really want to spend time on this deal anymore. And so what did he do? He said, I got to sell it. Right. Well, this property was, I think it was like 9 out of 22 units were occupied and that needed renovations. And so I'm like, hey, look, you want to sell this property. I want to buy this property, but it's distressed and I can't get normal financing on this deal. I just can't. And you know that, right? And so what I would like to do is I want to buy this building from you, but I need you to finance it for me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So then I went and said, okay, well, here's what this looks like. And this is why this is valuable. And I gave him a whole like amortization table. I showed him exactly what it looks like. I found out his motivation a little bit more. And I ended up working this deal with this guy because I showed him and explained him exactly what this looks like, exactly what the deal looks like. Without doing that, there's no way he would have said yes. There's just no way, right? He was already ready to say no. and he didn't understand it. And that's the problem. He didn't understand what that looked like. So I had to show him what does it look like, right? And make it look good for him. All right. So I bought contract for deed. It was a 10%. I give this guy 10% down payment. I gave, or he gave me a loan, 5% interest, 30-year amortization. So I bought it for $435,000 and I sold it for $730,000, 4 years later. I worked this deal because he loved the monthly payments. See, he still loved real estate. He still wanted the income from real estate. But the funny thing is, he's, like I said, he had 9 out of the 22 units occupied. Do you think he was making money on that deal? No, he wasn't making money, right? He was spending a lot of time there. He was just not making money. It just wasn't a great investment for him. So I showed him how much money he could make every single month. He looked at that and he said, wow, I'm making way more money. If this guy takes over, he's also investing in my property. I can see how much he's investing in my property. And so, because I showed him my plan, I met with him, showed him my plan. That's the other thing. If you can meet with these sellers, that's even better. Get to know them a little bit, make them feel comfortable around you. Show them, talk to them about your plan. Never insult them. Don't tell them their property sucks. Point out the obvious, but in a good way, right? In a good way. You got to be careful how negative you are to a property owner and to a broker. But to a property owner, you got to be careful how negative you are. You can tell them how beautiful the property is with also telling them how much work you're going to put into it, right? And so they know and understand, okay, you care, you see this property, see its potential. So that's what it's all about. It's seeing the potential. I see the potential of this property. It's gorgeous. The area is great. Oh, here's what we're looking to do. We want to do X, Y, and Z to it. So you got to be tactful. Make sure you don't insult them. Oh, this is a rundown building, man. It's been terribly managed. It's distressed. Like, we don't want to use words like that. Now, maybe if they have a third-party property management company and they're telling you how distressed it is and they're telling you how bad the management company is, okay, sure. Now you can talk the same language as them. But for the most part, we want to be careful. We want to be tactful. So that's one deal. Here's another deal. So I've got another property. It was an 11-unit building, kind of similar. This guy, I think he had 3 units out of the 11 occupied. And I got that, 5% down payment. Now, here's a cool thing that I did. I thought this was fun, and the next one will show you even more. But I put $50,000 into an escrow account to complete renovation, and so I actually, part of my quote unquote down payment was this $50,000 that I put in this escrow account that I was able to then draw upon as I completed the renovations in the property to bring it back up to where it's at. I bought it for 160. I sold it for 360 just a couple years later. The next one, this one's an exciting one. So this is a deal that I purchased, 120 unit deal. So I purchased this 120 unit deal. Now, so a lot of people think, well, you can only do contract for deeds on a single family, on a duplex, I see that you did it on a 22 unit and 11 unit. Yeah. Okay. I could see that happening, but of course you're not going to be able to do it on a 120 unit building, right? Well, wrong. I did this on a 120 unit building. Okay. This guy had a loan on the property. So it was still, the financing, we kept the financing in place. The bank actually approved this transaction and what we did. So what I did is I set up an 8% down payment, put $600,000 into an escrow account that was held by my attorney. And that was in order to complete the renovation. Now, the renovation was more than $600,000. I utilized some liquid cash that I wanted in my account so I could get to that really quickly and easily, right? But I put $600,000 into this account that could get drawn upon. And we had just a full draw request. It was really simple. His broker was actually the one that went and looked at the property every time, and so it was free draw request, which is beautiful. And it was I just had to spend $50,000 or more for myself to take a draw. So it was really easy how we set that up. Now, so it was only an 8% down payment, so really small down payment. But then it was the $600,000 that went in the escrow account. Now, what that $600,000 is basically a guarantee that I will pay this guy, because this 600,000 sits in the escrow account. And if I miss a payment, then that $600,000 starts to go to him. So it starts to pay those payments. So I can't miss payments. And then if I'm not completing the renovations and default on the property, that whole $600,000 goes to this seller. Right now, if I'm executing the business plan, I'm improving the property. So I'm actually putting the $600,000 into the property, making it better. And there's proof because they're inspecting it. So they're seeing that I'm actually putting $600,000, improving the property, making it better. So that's their down payment, the 8% plus the $600,000. Now he goes, well, if I get this property back, I either have an improved property or I got this $600K, right? Still, of course, he wants more, but at least he's got the property back. Now he can sell it to somebody else. We set up a 5% interest only loan for 5 years, which was at that time below market rate for a bridge debt, which is the only other type of loan I could have gotten on this property. It was so cheap to close. Bridge debt, you got to pay all these fees, you got to pay broker fees, you got to pay attorney fees. I mean, by the time you're done, you're paying, 3.5-4% of the purchase price. You got to get a rate cap. And rate caps today are crazy expensive. I didn't have to do any of that. We fixed it 5% interest only for 5 years. Didn't have to get the rate cap, didn't have to pay mortgage broker fees, none of that. Closing was cheap as can be. I think, our closing was like less than 50 grand. I believe it was a lot less than that. If I remember right, I have to pull up that closing statement, but it was really cheap. I syndicated the deal. So instead of having to syndicate on this deal, instead of having to syndicate like $3 million or probably 2.5, I only had to syndicate 1.4. Bought this one and bought this 120 unit in 2017 for just over 4 million, sold it for just over 6.5. So that's an example of seller financing. Now, got another deal I want to talk to you about, and this one's quite a bit different. So I worked a deal with a seller that it was pretty normal, right? So we did normal financing on it, 20% down payment, did the whole work, syndicated the equity needed. But part of that syndication was the seller. I actually created an own individual share class. So I created an A share. It's just its own separate share class that the seller invested in. And the seller invested $800,000 into this deal at a 7% preferred return, no equity upside. The only benefit is that they get to, take the depreciation. Otherwise, it's essentially a seller carryback. Now, why didn't I just do a seller carryback and do a 7% note with this seller? Well, there's two reasons. One is because this is a preferred return. So if I don't make money, he doesn't make money. It's preferred, meaning we only pay when we make 7% or above. That's when he starts to get his 7%. Okay. Number two is if I would have done a seller carryback, meaning the seller creates a new note for $800,000. Well, then guess what? The bank wouldn't have liked that as much. And instead of a 20% down payment, I would have had to do a 20% less $800,000. So in the end, it would have worked out to be the same. I just would have had the seller financing for $800,000 at 7%. Then I would have had the bank financing for a little bit less than what they gave me. But their interest rate was 3.8%. 5%. So that wouldn't have made any sense. This allowed me to only have to raise, instead of 3.8, I only had to raise $3 million. Now I could have done this instead of $800,000. I could have done this at 1.6 million. I could have done this at 2 million. I could have done this at 4 million. I could have done this at any uh, amount that worked for the seller. We worked out an agreement on what would work, what makes sense for him, all that kind of stuff. So, but that was a way to bring him in. I brought him into the syndication differently than doing seller financing. Now, what else? I mean, there's so many different other options you can do. You can easily do the seller carryback. I think the most important part with the seller carryback is get to know your lenders and understand what your lenders are willing to allow you to do. Some lenders will say, look, the down payment's 20%, whether it's 20% to us, it's just the down payment's 20%. It doesn't matter. You have to bring, let's call it $400,000 to this deal. Like, you personally have to bring 400,000. So if you get a seller carryback, you still are bringing $400,000 to the table. So, well, that doesn't work, right? That doesn't help me out. But some banks go, look, all we care about is that we have a 125 debt service coverage ratio. So as long as the seller financing doesn't encroach upon that, you can have as much seller financing as you want. Okay. So other lenders are very open to it. I've seen deals, I haven't done it myself, but I've seen deals that have enough seller financing to where the buyer only has to bring like 3 to 5% into the deal. So those are excellent if you can work that type of deal. Obviously, a contract for deed, you can work whatever. You could bring $0 into the deal if you're able to work that deal with the seller, and it makes sense for both parties, of course. It's all about the communication with that particular owner and trying to get them on the same page as you, right? You guys both have to match and say, okay, this is what we want to do. I think the most important part of this is just making the offers, just putting it out there. Because if you're not willing to do it, if you're not willing to say, this is what I'd like to do, you're never going to get it. The reason why I like multiple offers too, though, is because there's a lot of deals that will work both ways. Right. So there's a lot of deals that I say, I want this deal no matter what. I'm going to pay, $10 million if I have to buy it cash and get my own financing, but I can pay, maybe I can pay $11 million if the seller is willing to work a creative deal with me in a specific certain way. The beautiful thing about creativity is you can get very creative. You got to make sure you're doing it to legal, moral, and ethical, of course. And so make sure you have good attorneys that know the legalities behind what you're trying to do. But you can get very creative and you can do some really cool things. You also want to make sure you're protected. I think that's really, important. We don't want to skip that, so make sure you have a good attorney that is looking out for you and making sure that you're actually protected. Because, like, for instance, I could have done this 120 unit and I could have done everything I did and that would have been great. But if the bank, he had a loan on it, and his loan was only like $1.8 million, but he had a loan on it for $1.8 million. If the bank didn't approve what we did, the bank could technically foreclose on us immediately. They see the sale happen. There's a due on sale clause likely. And so they could foreclose on us very quickly. If we didn't set this up right, I could be paying the seller, I could be paying him every single month and he wouldn't pay his mortgage. Well, now all of a sudden, again, we've got a problem. He's not paying his mortgage. He gets foreclosed on. I don't even know, like, the foreclosure. I don't get the foreclosure notice. And all of a sudden, the property is foreclosed. And I'm thinking, I'm doing all this work to this property. I got this great asset and it goes away. So you got to make sure what you do is set up strategically for you and properly, so you don't get yourself into trouble too. So, I mean, we made sure that it was approved by the bank. We made sure that we were notified. We are on the bank notices. All the notices went to us. We got monthly statements so we could see that the mortgage was being paid. A lot of times you can get it set up to where your money goes to the mortgage and to the seller. So basically 2 payments are being sent, one to the lender, one to the seller. So you could set it up a lot of different ways, but we made sure we were protecting our butts. And you don't want to get a good deal and get screwed, right? That's the worst thing. So how else can you get creative? Well, again, a lot of different ways. Creativity is all about being creative, so it's all about figuring out different ways. But joint venture is another way. Look, I've done a lot of joint venture deals. When I was first starting in real estate, I ran out of money. I couldn't buy any more real estate. So I talked to a couple buddies. They wanted to buy some rentals. So what did I do? They were working. They were full time. They were busy. Um, and so what I ended up doing is they bought the properties in their own personal name, and I partnered with them and ran the deals and did all that, and we split the equity. They got the loan, they put some down payment in, I put some down payment in, and we split the equity, and that was a great deal. I did that several times with people, and it worked out really well for both parties. Syndication, of course, I do syndication. I would call that a fairly creative way to get deals done. This allows us to buy bigger buildings. I mean, we're buying 113 unit. Probably by the time this gets out there, we might already have it purchased. But we raised $9.75 million for that deal, and we are putting in money. Certainly, as GPs, we're putting in almost 800. I think we're putting in $800,000 into it, but we're not putting 9.75 million into it. So we are able to get into that deal for a lot less. Now we're giving up plenty in return, and that's the key on seller financing, on creative financing, on everything. You're giving up something in return, likely. All right, and then of course you can get creative through just providing sweat equity, providing value, that type of stuff. All right. That's all I really have for today. But what I really want to make sure you took from this is get creative, get deals done. Look, don't just assume that the deals on the market and the deals that you market for are regular deals. We have bought all those examples that I gave you are deals that were actually listed by brokers. So not only did I have to teach the sellers why this was a good deal, I also had to teach the brokers why this was a good deal. I had to, in a couple instances, work out realtor commission deals with the brokers and how we are going to pay them. And so one of the deals we did was an installment to the broker. The broker actually got part of their commission up front, and they got the remaining commission on the back end. And we had to make sure they are okay with that. That's a challenge, right? Because they want to make sure they get paid, and I would too. So look, get creative, be out there, and get deals done. And so, you can't grow if you're not negotiating and making deals. And there's nothing more fun to me than negotiating on a deal and getting some seller financing and really making a creative deal work. Those are fun opportunities, I think, for at least for me, for everyone and hopefully involved. But those are fun opportunities. So go out there, make your offers, get some deals, and have some fun. Like every day Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out. And we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.